like to jump straight in. So, what I noticed straight away is the Jay sat in front of me today is not the same Jay that I met in high school. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, completely different person.
Yeah, so what I want to do is capture your journey as much as I can. So if we start to think about the earlier years, what was life like for you?
Taking it back, I was just a bit of a naughty lad in school, always getting into trouble, just getting moved from school to school, probably from year 8 up until year 11. I went to like 5 different schools,
Wow.
always getting in trouble, whether it was from fighting, just not having respect for the teachers, just usual like kid stuff.
Where did that come from? Because not every kid's like that.
I feel like I had a lot of anger as a young lad. I'm not sure where from, but there's probably reasons for that. But maybe just a lot of built up anger that I used to take out in school.
I guess then from a young age, because anger's a secondary emotion, so it's like a build-up of maybe sadness or whatever other emotion, and I guess young lads and even men only know how to express it in negative ways and are more comfortable expressing anger than other emotions. So you said that would essentially impact how you behaved in school.
Yeah.
Did you have anyone there that could kind of help you navigate that anger? Was you aware of it, or was this just something in hindsight that you go, oh, that's why I was acting that way?
I think at the time it was just part of how I was, who I was. Not until I look back now and I realised that was just an angry person. I feel like I started to channel it into training and getting the release with the emotion through working out. That helped a lot with my anger.
You said you got expelled from, a few different schools. What was the impact of that? Because obviously then you just mentioned training, so was that a smooth transition? Did you leave school and go straight into training for structure, or did that come a little bit later on?
Well, I had a lot of spare time due to not being in school, so my uncle would be at the gym. I'd go to the gym with him, do some like boxing, some circuits, a lot of training in that style.
Yeah. Sounds like he was a kind of a positive role model then for you at that time.
Yeah, definitely, especially in the training aspect. We created a bond through the training.
Yeah, I love that. And other than your uncles, was the other influences around you, whether positive or negative?
I feel like at the time you don't really know the difference between the two. It's not till like growing up, being a bit wiser, looking back, realising what was negative and what was positive. So looking back now, I can point out what was and what wasn't. But at the time, I didn't really know from the two.
Yeah. So were you pulled in different directions, and in hindsight you say, well, probably there was a bit of both, positive and negative role models. Were you pulled in kind of different directions?
Yeah, yeah.
And did you have to make a choice?
Yeah, I feel like there's two sides to it. There was definitely a lot of negative around where I was and where I grew up. But there was also a lot of positive. So I found the positive side through training, and a lot of the negative stuff was happening on the streets after training or before training.
That must have been tough to navigate though, because it's like in one aspect, like you're doing something good, you're training, you're disciplined, like you're taking care of yourself, and then on the other side, like as soon as that's finished, you're out doing whatever.
Yeah, it was very mixed. It's like, and at the time, training wasn't something I'd do more than 1 hour a day. So you do your training, and then it's back to doing what you want to do for the rest of the day. And like I said, there was a lot of negative stuff going on around, and you can get drawn into that, especially at that age.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess that's a negative impact of being excluded from school. That structure's gone straight away. You've now got 7-8 hours that you're in school, free time to do whatever you want, zero structure. And we know when people have zero structure that when you've got a lot of time on your hands, you're not up to good stuff generally.
Yeah.
Especially when you're not wise and you're young, you in your adolescence, like you're bound to be pulled in them directions. So where did we go from here?
So after being expelled from school, there was a long period where I was out of school, waiting for the next school to accept me. So that's when I was finding my feet with the training, getting busy with that. And then once I got back into the structure of being in the school, that didn't last very long. I was probably in the new school for maybe 3-4 months. And then in that time, I'd just get excluded again due to the anger issues I was dealing with at the time.
And were the schools less lenient with you because you'd already had a history of maybe bad behaviour and they thought, well, this is going to continue, so let's just first strike you out?
Yeah, it seemed that way.
Because it's a tough one, because it's like you want them to have a bit more patience with people who are going to school, and at the same time it's like, how do they deal with it? Like if you said yourself you was disrespecting teachers, like you had a lot of anger issues which you weren't aware of, how do they navigate that? So you've been kicked out of school, you started training, come back into school, kicked out again. Seems like a bit of a cycle there. Did the training stick?
The training did stick, yeah. It was something I'd always sort of go back to. It started to become a part of my release and what I would do for that anger.
And when did you realise that was a release for anger?
I probably didn't really realise it at the time. It's probably always looking back in hindsight when you realise what it was doing for you.
Yeah.
But at the time I was just training to train. I didn't really realise the benefits it had on my mind.
And this might be quite a jump forward, but when did you make that connection between when I train, I feel good, when I hit the bags, I'm releasing a lot of built up emotion or anger, whatever that looks like?
Probably not up until recently, to be fair. It's like after years of training and having that in a release but not recognising it, it wasn't until something tragic happened and then I found my feet in training and realising, whoa, this actually makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah.
I'd say that was the turning point.
So maybe it's education on it, as well as obviously something happened for you where your mental health or your emotions were probably a bit out of control, and then training kind of helped you get them a bit more under control. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's correct.
So where do we go from being kicked out of school, every school you went to you've been kicked out, and you picked up the training but the training stuck, so where do we go after school?
So after I was finding myself at my granddad's a lot of the time. That's where I'd spend most of my time due to no one being home. My mum was at work, so I'd never really be around there. I'd be around at my granddad's with my uncles, talking about training, watching bits of UFC, doing things like that.
Yeah, so you sound like very much a family person.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So was there any point where you looked forward and kind of looked at, do I want a career, do I want a job? At the minute I'm just training and maybe doing whatever else outside of training.
Yeah, well, at the time I was just busy with my training, being a young lad on the streets, getting up to no good. It's like where the area that we're from, it comes a bit natural for the young lads. So I was just keeping busy training and messing about on the streets.
Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed that clip, click here to get the full episode. And don't forget to subscribe.